I'm Andrew, and I grew up in a quiet suburban neighborhood on the outskirts of a bustling city. Our house, a charming two-story home nestled among tall oak trees, was always a place of comfort and solitude. My family consisted of my parents, who often had to travel for work and family emergencies, and my older siblings, who were usually busy with their own lives. Despite the frequent absences, I cherished the time I spent alone in our house, especially during those rare weekends when I had the whole place to myself. But one particular Saturday, an unsettling encounter would change my perception of our home forever. One chilly Saturday when I was 12, my parents had to attend a funeral in a nearby city. My older brother had moved out, and my sister was out of town for the weekend, so my parents left me home alone for the entire day. I was thrilled. The house was mine for the day, and I planned to blast music and spend hours on my computer. Our home had a separate office that used to be my brother's room before he moved out. It had become my personal space, complete with my computer and a dedicated phone line to avoid disrupting the family's phone use. After settling into the office, I called my friend who lived a few blocks away. She sounded distraught, saying she was having problems with her boyfriend and needed someone to talk to. I invited her over, excited for some much-needed girl talk. As I dashed into the kitchen to grab snacks, I saw her, a slender woman dressed in black. She was standing at the edge of the hallway. Her head was tilted in an unsettling manner, and though I couldn't see her face clearly, I felt a chill that made my heart race. I tried to shake it off, attributing it to being alone for too long, and ran back downstairs. When my friend arrived, she asked why I was outside. I brushed it off, saying, "I thought I saw something strange. Let's just get some treats and talk inside." We settled in the kitchen with some hot chocolate, and she opened up about her boyfriend troubles. We decided to use my computer to video call him and his friends. As I set up the webcam, my friend glanced into the hallway and turned pale. She whispered, "There's a woman in your hallway." I froze, then quickly shut the door without looking. I asked her if I had mentioned seeing someone earlier, and she said no. When I asked about the woman's hair, she confirmed it was styled in a bun. We both panicked, opened the door cautiously, and hurried downstairs. I called my parents, saying I was heading to my friend's house, but they insisted they were on their way home. When they arrived, I told them what happened, but they dismissed it as a misunderstanding. For days after, I was plagued by unsettling occurrences. Items in my room would be misplaced, and my calendar would be upside down. I questioned my sanity, unsure if it was my imagination or something more sinister. The strange events eventually subsided, but when we adopted a young cat a couple of months later, her behavior was even stranger. She would meow at random corners of the house and then dash away as if terrified. One of these spots was in my room, where she now hisses and avoids constantly. To this day, I can't shake the feeling that something is watching us, or maybe it's just my cat's way of telling me something still lingers in the corners of our home. I'm Brain, and I live with my girlfriend Lexica in a cozy 10th floor apartment in the heart of the city. Our daily routine is pretty straightforward. We both work from home, enjoying the convenience of our urban lifestyle. During the day, we split our time between our respective home offices and relaxing together in the living room. Our evenings are spent unwinding with movies or books, often culminating in a shared meal before we head to bed. Lexica and I cherish our quiet nights together, especially since we rarely get disturbed. However, a few nights ago, something changed. A persistent tapping at our window has turned our peaceful nights into nerve-wracking experiences. It all started one night when I woke up to get a glass of water and heard a strange sound. At first, I thought it was nothing, but it has become a nightly occurrence. I glanced at the clock, 1:01. I shifted in my bed, and the tapping became more urgent. I brushed it off, thinking it was just our neighbors or something. The next day, I forgot all about it. The following night, Lexica woke me up, panic in her voice. "Babe, someone is tapping at the window." I tried to assure her it was nothing, but then I heard it again. The clock read 1:01. The sound was like someone using their fingernail to knock. I froze, listening. The tapping grew louder. Summoning my courage, I got up and walked to the window. I pulled back the curtains, but there was nothing there. The window was fogged up with the faint message, "Let me in," which vanished as soon as I read it. I rubbed my eyes, unsure if it had been real. I turned to Lexica with a forced smile.
"It was probably just a branch."
She didn't look convinced, but we both went back to bed. We fell asleep on the couch watching a movie. Around the same time as before, I heard the knocking again, faintly through the rain. I pulled the covers over my head, pretending not to hear it. The knocking grew more urgent, and I held Lexica tighter. Somehow, I managed to fall asleep. The next morning, Lexica handed me a cup of coffee.
"How did you sleep?"
She asked, concern in her eyes.
"Not great."
I admitted. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, the knocking started again. I stood up, grabbed a kitchen knife, and approached the window. The knocking mimicked my steps. I pulled back the curtains to see a silhouette illuminated by the moonlight, which quickly disappeared. Then the scratching began, nails running across the glass. The noise was unbearable. I dropped the knife and covered my ears. Lexica did the same. When I looked again, there was nothing there, just a bloody handprint and deep scratch marks on the window. My heart raced.
"We can't stay here,"
Lexica said, hugging herself. "It's probably a prank." I tried to reassure her, but I wasn't convinced. The next morning, we spent the day away from the apartment. I didn't want to leave Lexica alone, so I took her to her friend's place. I decided to go back to the apartment alone to check things out. I took my old baseball bat and sat by the window waiting. The knocking didn't come at 1:01, or at 1:02, or at 1:03. I laughed at myself for being so paranoid. Then my phone rang. "Bryce, it's here. Please come get me." Lexica's voice was frantic. I could hear the tapping in the background. "Stay on the phone with me," I said, rushing to get my keys.
"Please open the window."
She pleaded.
"What do you mean, open the window?"
I asked. Her voice changed, sounding distorted and evil.
"Let me in."
The tapping became frantic. I stepped back from the door. The doorknob rattled, and the door shook on its hinges. I turned around and saw the window shatter, glass flying everywhere. I heard the sound of teeth grinding on glass. My whole body shook. I dropped the bat. I curled up into a ball, trying to block out the noise. The banging on the door grew louder. I wanted to run but couldn't move. Lexica found me the next morning. a sobbing mess in my Spider-Man costume. The apartment was a wreck, glass everywhere, bloody handprints, and claw marks. I've avoided that building ever since, and I refuse to stay in any apartment now. Some things in this world are beyond our understanding and can strip away our very sanity. I grew up in a typical suburban neighborhood, living in a cozy, two-story house with my family. When I turned 8, we got a cat named Whiskers, who became my closest companion. As I got older, I spent more time alone at home, but Whiskers always kept me company, making me feel safe and secure. However, things changed when I turned 16. My family moved to an older, larger house surrounded by dense woods. Sadly, a few months after the move, Whiskers went missing, and we never found him. It was a tough time, but I was grateful it was summer, so I didn't have school to worry about. After a week of searching for Whiskers and grieving, my parents went back to work, leaving me alone at home. The new house felt strange and unfamiliar, and without Whiskers, I found myself feeling uneasy about every little noise. One hot afternoon, about a week after Whiskers disappeared, my parents left for work, and I stayed home as usual. The layout of the house was a bit unusual. The front door opened into a spacious living room, which led to a kitchen. A narrow staircase at the back of the kitchen took you upstairs to the bedrooms. Since moving in, I developed a habit of closing all the bedroom doors upstairs each day because seeing them open made me feel uneasy. That day was no different. I went upstairs and shut each door until I reached the last one, my parents' bedroom. I pulled it closed but didn't hear the click of it latching, so I went back and firmly shut it until I heard the click. Feeling more at ease, I went back downstairs to my room, closed the door, and put on my headphones to watch videos online. A couple of hours passed, and I decided it was time for a snack. I took off my headphones and opened my bedroom door. As I stepped into the hallway and turned towards the stairs, something felt off. I glanced back up the stairs and noticed that my parents' bedroom door was wide open. I froze, my heart pounding. I knew I had closed that door. Standing still, I listened carefully for any sound but heard nothing. I realized someone might be in the house. I quietly made my way to the kitchen, grabbed a heavy frying pan for protection, and cautiously moved through the living room, scanning for any signs of an intruder. I checked the ground floor rooms first, but everything seemed in order. Mustering my courage, I slowly ascended the stairs, gripping the frying pan tightly. I checked the first few bedrooms, finding nothing out of place. Finally, I stood outside my parents' room. The room looked just as I had left it, but the feeling of unease was overwhelming. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. As I moved further into the room, I noticed a faint footprint on the carpet near the window. Just then, I heard a faint noise from the attic above. My blood ran cold. I had forgotten about the small door in the ceiling that led to the attic. Summoning all my courage, I grabbed a nearby chair, climbed up, and opened the attic door. I was met with darkness and silence. I quickly scanned the small space with a flashlight, but it appeared empty. I closed the door and locked it securely. Rushing downstairs, I called my parents and told them what happened. They immediately contacted the police and came home. During their investigation, The police found more footprints and determined that someone had indeed been inside the house. Thankfully, nothing was stolen, but the experience left me shaken. We eventually moved again, finding a place where I felt safer. Now in my 20s, I still think about that day and how different things could have been. I often wonder what would have happened if I had encountered the intruder. Though it's a chilling thought, I'm grateful for the lessons it taught me about staying vigilant and prepared.